is a song that our spiritual master would always sing before the class. It kind of evokes the mood of Vrindavan. Jaya Radha Madhava. Radha Madhava is Krishna, Madhava is Krishna, and Radha is his eternal consort. Kunja Bihari, he who enjoys in the gardens and groves of Vrindavan. Kunja. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vrajajana Ranjana Girivardhari. He, the lifter of Govardhan, Giridhari. This is the name of our deity here. And he delights the residents of Vrindavan. So you can sing along with it. Yeah. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. I'm just going to make sure that the light is on all the way. Did you turn the lights on? No, no. Okay. I'll be right back. 30 seconds. All right, we will be studying page 221 today. Oh, it's a different page on that book. Chapter 4, text 35. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 12th day of June 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 4 entitled Transcendental Knowledge, text number 35, page 221. Yad gatva napunarmoham evam yasasi pandava yena bhutani sheshani drakshasyatman hyato mahi yaggatva napunarmoham evam yasasi pandava yena bhutani sheshani drakshasyatman hyato mahi yaggatva napunarmoham evam yasasi pandava yena bhutani sheshani drakshasyatman hyato mahi yaggatva napunarmoham evam yasasi pandava yena bhutani sheshani drakshasyatman hyato mahi. Anyone else want to try? Okay. I'll just read the word-by-word meanings myself. Yat, which, gatva, knowing, na, never, punaha, again, moham, to illusion, evam, like this, yasyasi, you shall go, Pandava, O son of Pandu, yena, by which, bhutani, living entities, asheshani, all, drakshasi, you will see atmani, in the Supreme Soul, atau, or in other words, mayi, in me. Krishna says, having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. Purport. The result of receiving knowledge from a self-realized soul, or one who knows things as they are, is learning that all living beings are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. The sense of an existence separate from Krishna is called Maya. Ma, not ya, this. Some think that we have nothing to do with Krishna, that Krishna is only a great historical personality, and that the Absolute is the impersonal Brahman. Excuse me. Factually, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, this impersonal Brahman is the personal effulgence of Krishna. Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of everything. In the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. Even the millions of incarnations are only his different expansions. Similarly, the living entities are also expansions of Krishna. The Mayavadi philosophers wrongly think that Krishna loses his own separate existence in his many expansions. This thought is material in nature. We have experience in the material world that a thing, when fragmentally distributed, loses its own original identity. Okay. Hare Krishna. We have experience in the material world that a thing, when fragmentally distributed, loses its own original identity. But the Mayavadi philosophers fail to understand that absolute means that 1 plus 1 is equal to 1, and that 1 minus 1 is also equal to 1. This is the case in the absolute world. For one of sufficient knowledge in the absolute science, we are now covered with illusion, and therefore we think that we are separate from Krishna. Although we are separated parts of Krishna, we are nevertheless not different from him. The bodily difference of the living entities is Maya, or not actual fact. We are all meant to satisfy Krishna. By Maya alone, Arjuna thought that the temporary bodily relationship with his kinsman was more important than his eternal spiritual relationship with Krishna. The whole teaching of the Gita is targeted toward this end. that a living being, as Krishna's eternal servitor, cannot be separated from Krishna, and his sense of being and identity apart from Krishna is called Maya. The living entities, as separate parts and parcels of the Supreme, have a purpose to fulfill. Having forgotten that purpose since time immemorial, they are situated in different bodies as men, animals, demigods, etc. Such bodily differences arise from forgetfulness of the transcendental service of the Lord. But when one is engaged in transcendental service through Krishna consciousness, one becomes at once liberated from this illusion. One can acquire such pure knowledge only from the bona fide spiritual master, and thereby avoid the delusion that the living entity is equal to Krishna. Perfect knowledge is that the Supreme Soul, Krishna, is the supreme shelter for all living entities. And giving up such shelter, the living entities are deluded by the material energy, imagining themselves to have a separate identity. Thus, under different standards of material identity, they become forgetful of Krishna. When, however, such deluded living entities become situated in Krishna consciousness, it is to be understood that they are on the path of liberation, as confirmed in the Bhagavatam 2.10.6. Muktir hitmanyata rupam swarupena vivastitihi. Liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Krishna, Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this verse goes with the previous verse. The previous verse was one of the seminal verses in the whole Bhagavad Gita because it gives us instruction that we need to approach a tattvadarshi to understand the actual truth of things. Tattvadarshi means someone who's literally seen the truth. Now, what is that truth? That truth is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, simply put, that and is explained in this verse and in this purport, we're living a grand illusion. Not just we, but every soul in this world who is identifying oneself with the body as the self, and completely absorbed in the needs of the body and the dangers and the fears and everything related to it. It's a grand illusion. And what that illusion consists of is this, is that each of us, as explained at the beginning of the Krishna's teachings in the 2nd chapter, is actually a spirit soul. Our nature is to be pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is indestructible. We never were born and we will never die. But we are persons, we're conscious persons. But that personhood has been subsumed within the identity created by this body. And as we know, human beings are one of many, many, many species on this world. Every organism, we call organism a conscious being, and it can be even a plant out there, which has rudimentary consciousness also. What to speak of the animals, the insects, and everything. They're just like us. They're what we call Atma. There's a soul, very minute, which is animating each body, each organism. When that soul goes from that body, the body dies, we call that death, but the soul doesn't die. The soul goes on. Now, in every species but human beings, because of the higher intelligence and the evolved consciousness, it is a life of responsibility. That means that there's a right and a wrong. There's a universal law operating. If we don't know what it is, chances are very high we'll violate it. And then we may very well lose the human form and go back down again. To slowly evolve, consciousness evolves, to come back to human life. This is what's going on. Now this is a kind of a punishment for the soul. We are originally, as several times mentioned in this purport, was this idea of part and parcel of Krishna. This means the anksha, the quality of an anksha, means a particle that has the same qualities as the whole, but is very minute. The classic example is the sun and the sun ray. Each sun ray or the sunshine in general, the many sun rays, there's warmth there, and there's light. Light and heat. Those are the two main energies of the sun. But if you go to the sun itself, it's like it's a vast amount of light and heat. We couldn't get near it, right? But each sun ray has a little bit of that light and heat. Similarly, right near the ocean, you take a little vial of the ocean water, and it has the chemicals of the ocean in minute degree. It's a little salty, and so many other chemicals are in there. But it's infinitesimal compared to the ocean itself. Similarly, we have Krishna's qualities, we have God's qualities in minute degree, which is very encouraging, because it means that by nature we're godly beings. But in our conditioned state, we don't manifest those godly qualities often. It gets to be covered by what we call this material energy, which is also one of Krishna's energies. So the basic idea is that we've turned our back on the divine, and we're trying to be little gods in this world. That means controllers and owners and enjoyers. But we're failing miserably. How long can we do it? Even if we get some power, we get some money, we have some relationship, it's all temporary. Time is pushing us toward the ending of whatever relationship we have, even with this body. And then to another fate, according to the consciousness we've developed in this life. This is the basic principle of reincarnation. Every day, every hour, every moment, we're making our destiny by what we do and how we interact with this world. Now, if we have no knowledge, this is where knowledge is important. These two verses are all about knowledge, right? Yagatva, knowing the truth of that knowledge, of the different sacrifices that he's spoken of in previous life. And the basic point is the knowledge of three things. Who am I? Where did I come from? What is the source of everything? In other words, who is God? What is this world? And what are the relationships between them? In the Vedic parlance, this is called sambandha gyan, knowledge of the relationship. Sambandha means the relationship. If we don't know that, then we're bound to make mistakes and get ourselves entangled in this material world and suffer these four basic miseries that are not intrinsic to us, but are imposed on us because of this material body: birth, old age, disease, and death. This is called the wheel of samsara. It's a wheel because it's around and around and around. We get another body, we go through again the thing and grow through it. This is not, we should not reconcile to it. Well, that's life. No, this is prison life. This is a very restricted, miserable life that we've made for ourselves, but we can get out of if we follow the principles of text 34. So we should read text 34 again. First of all, the introduction to this text is a whole list of sacrifices that different kinds of people perform basically for purification, for advancement in life. Whether you're a yogi or whether you're a student, brahmachari, an ordinary householder, whoever you may be, there's a set of duties you have to perform that will help you become purified of this illusion, come out of the illusion of bodily concept of life, and move down the path, the marga, toward enlightenment. That's what. But how do we understand the intricacies of these sacrifices? What my duty is, how I can do it. That, Krishna says in text 34, tadvidi panipatena. Just try to learn the truth of all of this by approaching a spiritual master, a guru, and inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So Krishna, he's our ultimate father, God the Father, right? In any culture there's a God the Father. So Krishna directly says that all the living beings, I am the seed-giving Father. I give the seed into this material energy, and then we take on bodies according to our previous karma. But Krishna is the Father. Therefore, he's concerned. It's as simple as that. He never abandons us. He even travels with us in all these bodies as a super soul, as an expansion in the heart. Because he's the supreme absolute truth, he has all these powers that we can't even imagine of. One of which is expanding. He expands in what he called plenary portions. I mean, those are just as powerful as Krishna, but they don't demonstrate all of the qualities of Krishna. And one of the main expansions that are very important for us is the super soul. We learn that there's not just one soul in each body, but there are two. This comes in the 13th chapter. They call it Kshetra Gya. The word Gya is related to knowledge. One who knows the field. We are a Kshetra Gya. We know our own body very intimately. We stub our toe, we know about it, right? We taste something very nice, we know about it. So the soul is hooked up to this world through the body, through the senses. And we know the ins and outs of our body to a degree, you know. I don't know how many hairs are on my head, you know. And I don't know how what I eat becomes digested and turns into energy. I don't know anything, you know, basically. But I certainly know more than anyone else. You know, I'm very tuned to the ups and downs of the body to that degree. So, but Krishna, he expands within each body, and he is also another Kshetra Gya. But the difference is he knows all the bodies. He knows what's happening in everybody. Now, what's the function of the super soul? Upadrashta anumantachar bhota bhakta bhakta mahesha. He oversees and he sanctions because he knows all of the background activity that we've performed. He knows what karma would do. He tells us to go here, there, here, you know, turn here. You're due to have a car accident. Turn up this road, you know. And you get, boom, you know, you have it. Now, it may be serious, it may be just a fender bender, depending on your karma. So the good karma, the bad karma, it's all under the aegis of the supervision of the Supreme Intelligence. From Krishna, as the Super Soul, come, what does he say? Sarva sachaham hridisanni vishto matta smartir jnanam apohanangsha. I, as the Super Soul, am situated in everyone's heart. That's what the first line means. Sarva, Hridi is the heart. Mattak, from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness also. That forgetfulness can be a great boon, isn't it? I mean, what would we do if we actually remembered our past death? And what about the other one before that and all that? If we were able to remember all that, we couldn't live. We'd have a massive case of PTSD. It would be so traumatic. So forgetfulness is also part of what Krishna gives us. But he also helps us remember if we want to remember. If we're curious, inquisitive about what is my ultimate nature, who am I, why am I suffering in this world, how can I achieve ultimate happiness forever? Is there such a thing? Those kinds of questions arise in the fortunate soul who has some background, pious background. So that's why our spiritual master took so much trouble to publish these books, because the answer is here. So what does Krishna say now in the verse that we read today? If you do what he says in text 34, which approach someone who's a genuine knower, such as Srila Prabhupada, Tattvadarshi, and three things, pranipatena, pariprashnena, and sevaya, there's this surrender factor. Means that we have to stop trying to figure all this out on our own, because we don't have the facility. It's way beyond. It's very mysterious. I mean, our senses are obviously limited. Our own minds are limited. And whatever the means of knowledge, gaining knowledge that we have at our disposal are limited. They can't tell us things that are transcendental. The very meaning of the word transcendental is beyond the scope of our present mind and senses. And that's exactly what we're asking about. I mean, if God is anything, he's invisible. Right? he's the creator. He's and he's so much more. But trying to figure who that is out on our own is impossible. So we need to find a source of knowledge that's reliable and that is beyond the range of our senses. It's called aparusheya, which in simple language means superhuman. So that is the main source of that knowledge is Krishna himself. He wants us to get the knowledge for our own good. Because you remember, we're all his sons. He wants us to come out of this trouble. So he sends his representatives. Sometimes he comes himself, as he says in this chapter, personally. He's the original guru. Any genuine guru must be teaching what Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita. This is why Prabhupada translated Bhagavad Gita as it is. Because there's so many other versions of the Bhagavad Gita, but they're not presenting Krishna as the actual teachings. They're trying to employ Krishna's teachings for their own purposes. And therefore, all these other Bhagavad Gitas that appeared before Prabhupada translated this in these 1970 about, no devotees came out of it. I mean, Krishna says, as plain as day at the end, give up these other dharmas that I just spoke about, this karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, any other yoga. Just do this one thing, surrender unto me. Forget everything else. And how to surrender? He tells you in the previous verse. Manmana, bhavamad bhakto, madhyaji, mam namaskuru. Simple. Manmana means to think of Krishna. How can I think of Krishna? Chant the holy name. That's the first way. You can think of the name of Krishna, you can chant it. The deity is there. Read the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna has reached out to us through this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, through his great servant, Srila Prabhupada, to give us numerous ways to think of him. And the understanding of why we should is all in these books. So think of me, become my devotee. How to do that? Consult the spiritual master and other devotees. Chant the holy name, and there's so many things to do. It's not impossible. Thousands of doing it all over the world. Madhyaji, sacrifice to me, worship me, and namaskuru, offer your obeisances to me, recognize my authority. And that's it. 2 verses. It's all condensed there. Now, how to do that successfully, that's explained in other books we have and shown by the Srimad Bhagavatam and so forth. So in other words, it's practical. The instruction is there. That was, and the facility is there. So that's all presented as it is by the Tattvadarshi, someone who's actually gone through the process and is realized and is a seer of the divine, both within and without. And what's the symptom of that? Completely separated and completely renounced from any kind of sense involvement. In other words, selfish motive. And we saw that, Srila Prabhupada showed that in his 12 years after he came to America. Really, it was more like 11 years of active preaching all over the world. He started out with literally nothing. No, I shouldn't say nothing. He had 40 rupees, which at that time, they were worth about 12.5 cents. I remember when I first went to India. How much does that come to? Not much. I can imagine going to an unknown country with no friends. You don't know where you're going to live. Well, he had one contact, but that was for a couple of weeks. And so then, and by Krishna's grace, he risked his life. He had heart attacks. He almost died a couple of times. But that gradually, the whole movement, blew up. The Hare Krishna explosion. There's a book written like that by Hare Krishna. And after some time, after like a few years, say 1974, 75, 76, he had thousands of disciples, means men and women, young men and women, ready to do anything he said. He had a nice, beautiful manor at his disposal in England. He had a very opulent house palace in Detroit that had been owned by an auto baron. He had plenty of places. He could have retired to Hawaii if he wanted and just lived there. Millions of dollars at his disposal, but he never used it. Just as he was when he started, he would get up at 12 at night and write his books, dictate them. First he was typing with one finger on his old typewriter. Then they got him a dictaphone and speeded up things a little bit. He's still performing so many austerities, showing that he's completely detached from any personal motivation here. His only desire was to give more and more and more Krishna consciousness to more and more people. That's what made him happy. That was his pleasure. This is the real sign of the advanced soul. Otherwise, you find so many yogis and bogies coming over, and we know some of the names, But you'll find eventually, they cash out. They're living a high life, or having some affair with their young disciples, something like that. This happened again and again. But never happened with Prabhupada. Because at every moment he's tasting the nectar of his relationship with Krishna. And we can too. He's given us a way to taste it also. That's what the Tattvadarshi is giving. So this formula of surrender and inquisitiveness, questions, and service, then he imparts the knowledge into us. And what's the result? That's the verse we read today. Thus knowing this, you will not be illusioned again. So he's telling Arjuna, you're in illusion now. Arjuna was representing us. Eva myasasi pandava, you'll not go into this illusion anymore. And by this knowledge, yena, bhutjana sheshana, you will see that all of the living entities, living beings are part of the Supreme, or in other words, they're part of me, they're mine. You'll understand the relationship of yourself and everyone else and everything else with the divine. You'll see God everywhere. That's the transcendental vision. And when you actually develop your relationship with Krishna by chanting his name and so forth, you'll see that the whole world is really, there's nothing alien to you. No matter where you are in this world, is home. Because it's Krishna's world, and you're Krishna's. That's the advanced vision. So this purport is very important. Srila Prabhupada is explaining the results of this. Let's see. The result is knowing things as they are. This is like Sambandha Gyan. What is God? What is this world? Who am I? What is the relationship? That we're all part and parcel of Krishna. And to have Maya, who is a servant of Krishna, withdraw her illusion so that you can see the truth. It's kind of, breathtaking to understand that every single person and every single organism is in a great illusory state. You may think, well, that's crazy. You're an illusion. No. It's easy to see. If you simply accept the obvious truth that we're not the body, you can start out with, okay, everyone we can all remember. Can everyone remember that when they were 10 years old? If you reach back, not everything, but certain highlights, Okay. So when we were all 10 years old, we were at 10 years old at different times, obviously. We had a different body, obviously. We had different thoughts and minds. We thought things were so important. At a certain point in my life, how old was I? Was I 12, 11? The most important thing one summer was amassing baseball cards. And I did it. I had like the last stand musial card, it probably was $30,000 today if I kept it. And I told myself, I'm not going to buy any baseball cards. I'm just going to, we had this thing called flipping where you'd have to match and cover these old games that we put together. And so I won, I had all these friends and they had some baseball cards and I would win them from. So after a while I had all the baseball cards, I had no friends anymore. But that was my goal. And I had every baseball card in the series, like the National American, that was my focus that particular summer. My father gave me a cigar box, the old cigar box, and I nicely fit there, and there was my Willie Mays card and all this stuff. That was my focus. That was what I was really into, that particular. That lasted one summer. Then the next summer, I got into something else, and the baseball cards went on the shelf, And I got into something else. And that's what happens as you grow up. Gradually, then you get to be 13, 14, and the other opposite sex becomes very important, and then, of course, schoolwork. So this is what life is you go through it, but you go through phases and then you discard them. Time is pushing you forward, right? So, but throughout the whole process, from when you first can remember anything to this present moment in time right now, we are the knowers of all of these changes. We're certainly somewhat aware of our physical body, but more important, what's going on inside. Our emotions, our thoughts, and everything. Even at dream time, you're not aware of your physical body, but you're maybe remembering something before, you have a different identity, whatever it may be. And that's what's important to you, and that's what you're aware of. So I am the knower of all of this. And I know I'm obviously not my body. I can lose my finger or foot, and I'm still the same person, right? So I know that. But more importantly, I am the knower of my subtle body. We call the subtle body. The thoughts and emotions and all of the thing that goes into the inner body. That also is not us. Now Krishna explains this in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 7th chapter, is that everything is composed of my energies. Bhumar, apo, anala, vayu, kangmano, viriricha. This is we commonly call earth, water, fire, air, ether. It was simply solid matter, gases, liquids, radiant energy, space, and then the subtle elements which are also material, mind, intelligence, discriminating factor, and finally the sense of self, the most subtle thing. All of them are subtle material energies. We are a superior energy, and everything, Krishna says, is a combination of those two categories of energy. Now, knowing that, we can see that we're completely dependent on Krishna. We are his energy, higher energy, superior energy, transcendental energy. And then we're in bodies made of the lower energies, and we're surrounded by these configurations. Now, what does that do for us? Well, that gives us, that places us in our true understanding of our ontological position in this world. And it means, and it should give us impetus to not identify with these temporary environments, either the subtle environment or the gross environment, because it's all changing. Who am I? What is my eternal nature? And Prabhupada quotes this line from a verse in the Bhagavatam at the end of this purport. What is mukti? Now, mukti is something that's a goal in all of Vedic wisdom, whether you're a worshiper of Krishna or Shiva, or you just you're trying to merge into the absolute. Mukti means liberation from the bondage of the physical body, liberation from birth, old age, disease, and death. If I can just get free, I'll be, that'll be a great thing, So that's mukti. But here in the Bhagavatam, the definition of mukti, that's actually permanent mukti. It's not something that you give up because something that mukti means no more thought, no more sensation, In that way I'll remain aloof and I won't get entangled in material energy. That's called Brahman realization, impersonal Brahman. It means that without variety, the white light, I'll just merge into that, I'll be free of that. But that's not, intuitively, doesn't that sound like it can get kind of boring? We're persons, right? We've been persons all this, even in lower species, we have engagements and things to do. We've been active. Suddenly to stop that is artificial. And sure enough, it's mentioned in the books, is that if by great austerities, because imagine trying to withdraw your mind from all detail and just think of the white light, it's practically impossible. You have to go out, to the Himalayas somewhere, no distractions, and try to control those senses, and all of those memories. Om, Om, Om. No Hare Krishna. There's too much detail. Om, Om, Om. Om is a sacred syllable, but it doesn't have the beat, So, so what happens is they generally come out of the Himalayas, they come to America and start a society or something. Or they'll start a hospital, or whatever. But the point is, it's not natural. Here what mukti is defined in the Bhagavatam. Mukti hitva anyata rupam swarupena vivastati. It doesn't mean you don't have a form, formlessness. No. It means giving up hitva anyata rupam, other forms, such as this one. We're going to have to give it up anyway. Give up identifying with this form and all. We've had so many forms even in this body, and we'll have more. So give up all of this misidentification with the physical forms, and be vyavastati, situated in your swarup. Now this is a very important concept. Swarup means that we have our original spiritual form with senses and everything else in relationship to Krishna. We've lost it. We've forgotten it. It's covered. Prabhupada, in his wonderful phrase, go back home, back to Godhead. In other words, there's a place there in the spiritual world for us. And there's not only a place, but there's a path to that place and the process of bhakti yoga. So this is one of the 10 subjects of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is liberation. And here is a definition of what that means. Our swarup means that we have a certain form, a certain emotion, a certain activity in relationship to Krishna. And when you read about Krishna, you realize, oh, he's very busy all day. He's not just standing there with Radharani. He's doing, he does that, but then he gets up in the morning, he's herding the cows, there's all kinds of relationships he has with his friends, with his servants, with his gopis, with his parents, with everything is conscious. The spiritual world is full of variety and activity, and it's all on the level of blissful exchange and love. That's where we belong, that's where we came from. And so that's where we have our swarup somewhere in that world, in relationship to God. We've forgotten it, but we'll be completely satisfied eternally in that relationship. That's what it means, swarupena vivastati. And mukti, that's just a byproduct. In other words, yes, you're liberated from birth and death in this world, but that's not your ultimate goal. That's like if you're laid up in the hospital, you had an accident, and I need to keep this thing on. Okay. Sorry about that. You're laid up in the hospital, and you've had an accident. You're in traction, right? I've never had that experience, although I was in the hospital for a month with heavy hepatitis back in '69. And, my mind was going here, going there, and I was thinking, when am I going to get out of here? That was my goal. I was thinking, so I can get relief from this. And if you're really suffering, you have some pain going on, then that's absorbing you. How can I get rid of this suffering? All right, so if some time in the hospital you get cured, you're Hare Krishna. She's afraid of me. and you get out of the hospital, and you sign yourself out, and finally, you're limping. You may have a cane or whatever, So then, is your life now complete? I finally got out of the hospital. Now what do? You resume your former life. You try to get back into things, right? So just the idea of getting out of the hospital, getting out of the suffering of this world, and not knowing what to do then, with that, there's a whole life after that. That's the impersonal idea of mukti. It's incomplete. It's self-defeating because they don't want to surrender to Krishna. I'm God. I'm Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. There's a phrase like that, It's true we're Brahmasmi, but we're not Para Brahman. We're not Supreme Brahman. We're this little Brahman. And our role as Brahman is, is to serve the Supreme Brahman. And that will make us happy. So that's what mukti is all about. And we'll understand we're part of the Supreme, and that we're Krishnas. In other words, we're meant to be. Yeah, you can sit here. I don't think she can read the book, but I know she's a little yogi. I can see that, how very self-controlled she is. Unlike others. Hare Krishna. So we're reading chapter 4 near the end here, where this text 34, 35. And the whole point is to be reinstated in our natural position. So why don't we read text 36, because this talks about how we can become free from sinful reactions. It's on page 223. 223. No? Text 36, chapter 4. Look at the gutter at the top. Okay. Well, page 223. Ready? Okay. Apichedasi papebhya sarvebhya papakrittamaha sarvam jnana plavenaiva vijinam santarishyasi. Okay, we're going to read the English now. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Purport. Proper understanding of one's constitutional position in relationship to Krishna is so nice that it can at once lift one from the struggle for existence which goes on in the ocean of nescience. This material world is sometimes regarded as an ocean of nescience and sometimes as a blazing forest. In the ocean, however expert a swimmer one may be, the struggle for existence is very severe. If someone comes forward and lifts the struggling swimmer from the ocean, he is the greatest savior. Perfect knowledge, received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the path of liberation. The boat of Krishna consciousness is very simple, but at the same time, the most sublime. So this is a common analogy, to compare life in this material world to two dangerous situations. One is an ocean, in which you've been capsized. You're in the ocean. You're fighting to stay alive. Very troubling, obviously. Or you're in a forest, and the forest is ablaze, and you're surrounded by flames. Also very dangerous and fearful. So, how to get out? So this is the boat of transcendental knowledge. Now the idea is, through this chapter is entitled Transcendental Knowledge, is that knowledge means that you learn from a transcendental source, And then you act on the knowledge. Then when the knowledge is really understood, it means that it forms your template for activity. Otherwise, just to know the facts and pass the test, that's, and then go do something else, that's not really understanding. So that's why it says, when you're in this boat of transcendental knowledge, it means you make it your life and soul, you see? So this idea of the boat is also there in a beautiful verse that Krishna gives in the 11th canto. He compares this human body as a boat. Nirdehamadhyam sulabam sudurlabam plabam sukalpam gurukarnadharam mayanukulyena nabasviteditam puman bhavabdin nataretsa atmaha. Okay, she's gonna have to. Yeah, I'm sorry. She's gonna cause the trouble. It's hard for kids because I can't understand any of it. That's why it's good you bring little coloring things for them. They absorb their mind that way. Now she's hurt. Now I insulted her. I'm sorry. All right, so the boat of he says, Nirdehamadhyam, this human form of life is a very nicely constructed boat to take us across the ocean of birth and death. Nirdehamadhyam, sulabam sudurlabam. Now, these are two opposite words, sulabam sudurlabam. How can you describe the same thing as being both easy to attain and difficult to attain? What is Krishna? Did he make a mistake? No. It's a play on words. Sulabam means that every soul eventually comes to the human form. Nobody is eternally damned. We're not into that. You may suffer like anything because of some sinful activity, but eventually you'll burn it off and you'll come back again. To this case. So in that case, it's sulabam. But it's very rare. In other words, there's 7 billion, 7.5 billion of us on this planet? And then amongst those, so many are just struggling to survive. And then, you keep going. There's very, very few who are interested in these subjects because it requires some blessing. So, but aside from that, even just you take the count, how many insects are there? How many blades of grass? They're all living entities. So it's very rare to get this human form of life. And a human form of life in which these subjects are impertinent to you and you're inquiring. So there's sudurlabam. Plavam, the human form, this nirdeyam is a boat. Very nicely constructed, sukalpam. But you need a captain of the boat, of the ship. That's the guru, Guru Karanadaram, we read in text 34. Someone who has seen the truth, a tattvadarshi. So so now what do we need? Favorable winds. This is one of those big sailboats. There's no engine on it. So Krishna, Mayanukulyena, the words I speak in the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita, this is the favorable winds. So we have the good boat, the body. We have the good captain who can guide us. And we have the favorable winds, the Vedas and all the teachings. And he says, Puman bhavabdim nataret sa atmaha. That human being who does not cross over the ocean with all of these facilities is atmaha, is committing spiritual suicide. In other words, wasting this treasure of the human form of life. So the point is, we should understand the urgency of it. I like to compare the situation, then we'll end here because we're going to have a kirtan soon, is that who hasn't heard of global warming or climate change or climate catastrophe? Everyone knows what that is, right? Does anyone think that it's not a climate catastrophe? That it's a serious situation that we face as human beings? It's a big deal, right? So what's going on with that? In other words, it's obviously an emergency. Is that we keep pumping out all these greenhouse gases and driving the cars and flying the airplanes and everything, and so the human life is heading toward a catastrophe, and we keep getting these warnings, these massive hurricanes, and now they have the weather, and then there's fire up north, right? And now in India, there's a hurricane. What the name of the hurricane is? Vayu. Horrible. So there's an extreme weather thing. Now, wait, my God. They say the poles are melting, even Antarctica is going out 200 feet. So there's all these warnings. You don't have to be some mystic, to see it. The scientists are telling us. But people are in denial. The leaders are in denial. Exxon, they knew about this back in 1970. They had their own scientists. So what was their response? Okay, we have to have a complete campaign to convince people that it's not happening. Their response, because we want to increase the profits, that's what they exist for. So the point is that it's a metaphor. What's going on macro level is happening on our individual level. I mean, regardless of climate change, we're all moving toward the demise of this body. That's obvious, right? So what are we going to do about it? Well, I can't do anything about it. Yes, you can, you see. Actually, the demise of the body is an illusion. So if you are able to become Krishna conscious and purified, you won't have to come back again. You get out of birth and death. Oh, okay, that's cool. I got so many things I got to do. That's the most important thing to do. The most important thing for the whole humanity is this climate change, disaster. So, now the kids there's a whole campaign because they're going to have to face it. Old codgers like us, young people also have it. But the point is, we don't have to worry about it. But it's the old people who are in charge. They're the ones who are moving billions around. So the thing is, it's a metaphor for each individual person. We all have our catastrophe coming. It's called old age, disease, and death. But it doesn't have to be, as catastrophic as it might be if we become enlightened, if we get real knowledge and we act on it. And that's the lesson for today. And it's 8:09, so we have time for one little poem. It says, this is from Lord Rishabhdev. Basically, it says, don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard. Don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. This is what bhakti yoga is all about. Hare Krishna, all glories, Srila Prabhupada.